You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
This podcast is made possible by the Made in Oklahoma program. Created for Oklahoma's entrepreneurs, their free-to-join program focuses on economic growth and development for the small businesses who grow, process, or manufacture a good within Oklahoma. Retail stores who sell Made in Oklahoma products can also benefit from their program. Above all, they encourage you to support and shop local wherever possible. Find them on Facebook and visit their website at www.madeinoklahoma.net to learn more. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode down at Bedford Studio today to talk, I think, distilling with two guests, Jeff Cole and Derek Duty, who from Prairie Wolf Distillery up in Guthrie, which is, I mean, I haven't been there, but I love Guthrie, and if it fits in Guthrie, then it's got to be cool. Right?
I dig it. Yeah, hey man, we think so.
Yeah, no doubt. So before we dive into obviously everything you're doing and current situation, tell me a little bit about yourselves. How did you guys end up in Oklahoma and get into distilling?
Yeah, so I'm Jeff. First of all, I am actually a fifth generation Oklahoman, so we've been here for a while.
Yeah.
I got into distilling sort of the back way. Most distillers are chemists and scientists and things like that. And I actually got into it from the hospitality side. Okay. So I used to be a beverage director for a group of hotels and several restaurants over time. And I just decided I wanted to get out of the service industry, and I got out at the right time, thank God. And then I called the only supplier I knew in the state that did distilling. I was into distilling as sort of a hobby. And we had a really short conversation. They hired me on as a sales director, and some time passed. Sanitizer happened. Yeah. COVID happened, and we created sanitizer for that. And after sanitizer, we brought on Derek, and he's taken the lead, on totally changing everything. Yeah.
So fifth generation growing up in Oklahoma. So this is, it is home for you, isn't it?
Oh yeah, man, very proud.
Yeah. Derek, what about you?
Man. First, thanks for having us. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Also, come to Guthrie. Come check us out. We'll have some stuff lined up soon when we'll be.
If I'm up there, it's usually to see Hetty.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So it's every now and then.
For sure. Yeah. So. Man, I've got a winding path also, which we'll talk in a little bit. We're about to go through some major changes, as you mentioned. Part of that is this winding path that Jeff and I kind of have the same way. And my background, man, is really in. I started way back in selling medical devices, and then bumped over and was a sales director at Yeti Coolers, and then I got recruited over to kind of rebuild and rebrand Anthem Brewing Company. So I did that for a few years, and then these nuts called me last summer, I guess. I know one of our silent owners. It's been a friend of mine for a long time. He just kind of randomly called me for lunch, and not knowing that the lunch was a kind of a, hey, please come help us figure this out,
interview.
Right? It was an incredible opportunity. And yeah, I love it. We have kind of we've changed so much. It's kind of unbelievable in really less than a year. And we're excited to tell you about what we have coming up, because it's kind of reinvent who we are, and we're really trying to put craft spirits on the map for this state in a big way by making some very uniquely Oklahoman products that I think will be pretty cool.
Because people know Oklahoma for craft beer now, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Not craft spirits, which is really cool that you guys have taken it down that road. But before we do talk into how everything's going to change, tell me the origin story for Prairie Wolf. How does it start? Why Guthrie and why spirits, not beer like everyone else?
Do you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. So the origin of Prairie Wolf actually begins with a family called the Merritts, the Merritt family. They chose Guthrie. They say they chose it for the water source, because they had just changed their water. I guess the water company up there just changed their quality.
Yeah.
And water, of course, is a big part of brewing and distilling. So where you get it matters. And so they had it for a number of years until 2018, and now the current ownership group took over then. So
I know the story. Jeff knows it better than I do, but I guess the Merritt family, their grandpa had a picture.
They had it's oh my gosh, I always forget this. It's the famous naturalist painter from the 1800s.
Okay.
He created the Audubon Society. What is what's it?
I can't remember.
James Audubon or something like that. Anyway, they have they have a painting that he did. I think he was in Oklahoma Territory at the time, and it's of coyotes, and he named it. he didn't know what to call them. He called them Prairie Wolves.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
the name of the painting.
That's really, I mean, the artwork that goes into the balls and everything, that's some cool stuff.
Thanks, man.
You know?
Yeah, we're excited for the current ownerships who changed that branding, and it fits a little better than the previous where they kind of started, which is nice. Don't fall too in love with it because they'll probably have another change of it ahead. But no, it's cool. And like I said, we as we continue chatting through our story, we've always been proud of the stuff that we kind of came on to. We've changed a lot and really improved a lot of the product. And now it's even crazier going ahead. So we'll always kind of keep that name and nod to them in a certain direction. But with where we're about to head, Prairie Wolf will be a really nice, like, additional arm of what we do, but it'll just kind of have its own home. But we're proud. I mean, it's the first legal still in the state, so you couldn't legally produce spirits in the state until their license.
Really?
Yeah.
Oklahoma has an interesting history as far as prohibition goes.
Sure.
And it actually entered the Union in 1907, or was it 1907? Yeah. And the agreement was that they become a prohibition state right away. And so it was in the Constitution, which is pretty tough
hard to
remove.
change.
Yeah.
So that was changed like within the last 5 years.
Typical prohibition was 1920 to 1933, so for the rest of the nation.
Yeah.
But Oklahoma kept it until 1956 or 1959.
Yeah, 59. Crazy, right?
Yeah. That's mad.
So
so you gotta go through the stuff to. I mean, all that paperwork is not easy stuff.
I know.
Like, you know, and having that, and now you guys have been kind of like you've paved the way for others to come in and do this, which is really cool.
Yeah, they fought. It took. I mean, I wasn't around for it, obviously, but it was tooth and nail for them to get.
Yeah.
It took some probably some green handshakes to
no
make
doubt.
that deal finally get through. But they set it up and got it rolling. So we have the first legal still license in the state. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And Guthrie's been pretty welcoming to everyone as well. I imagine we love all that stuff.
We're real proud of the city, and like we're doing a whole lot to continuously improve.
Yeah.
You know, we're involved in the community in every way we can be, and we continue to be. We've purchased quite a bit of product or property around the area that we're working on currently to really kind of spruce up and bring some new life to our section of the world. So we've got a bar going in, and our rick house we built, which we'll talk about that in a minute with bourbon. And we'll have a food truck park we're putting in also, which will be a lot of fun. So yeah, we're doing all we can to make
not just
fun.
brewing things. You're actually changing the city and changing the culture too. That's really cool to make an impact, right? And it's just it's more than just making drinks and making making this.
And it's such a cool little town. I think if anyone's ever been there, it's there's just a fun vibe to it, and we just want to make it where, hey, if you want to get away and drive 30 minutes up the road and stay for a weekend, we want to give you plenty of stuff to do. So.
So you've been brought in to do like a rebrand and then take it to, I guess, new heights or whatever, right? So,
for sure.
I mean, I'm sure that was fun conversation when you sit down with the ownership group and you're like, what are your ideas? What can we do, right?
Yeah.
And then,
that or I'm pretty bad about it. I come up with a lot of ideas and just say, hey, this is what we're going to do, and then I have to kind of talk my way out of it. And we're lucky. Our owners are. They give us the reins for the most part. They let us do what's right. We made a really nice presentation as to why we did what we did. So I'm glad you started asking about where Prairie Wolf came from, because the main thing we all wanted to do as a collective of who's there currently is own our space.
Right.
So a lot of what this new direction we're doing is making it distinctly us and our story. So continuing on the merit story of Prairie Wolf, but also now making our new brand, which is called Wonderfolk.
Okay.
That's more about who we are and our journey and what we're making. And man, we couldn't be prouder of what we're about to put out here in 9 days, actually.
Can you talk about it?
Surely.
Let's hear it. Let's hear the plan.
Yeah. So I just mentioned it. Moving forward, June 1st will be known as Wonderfolk Distilling.
Okay.
It's a cool name that Jeff actually kind of came up with. We were brainstorming endlessly about finding the right name, and we have all these crazy brainstorming bubbles everywhere. And those two words came together, and then it was kind of a perfect fit for us. And the other folks who work with us who aren't here also come from very varied backgrounds. Whether it's from their chefs involved, we've got. Other folks just from the spirits business, other folks from the alcohol business, from hospitality, restaurant groups. My background in sales and marketing, more proper. We've kind of wandered into this role, this position together, and our plan is to make things that speak to us and speak to, uniquely what makes Oklahoma cool and what we can really highlight with the products we're making, and then hopefully invite everyone else to wander with us as we find our direction down the road.
So what are the current products, and then what are you guys building in the future?
Sure. So as a brand, Wonderfolk, the nice thing with moving to that model is now we're allowing ourselves to kind of have several brands underneath. Yeah. So as Prairie Wolf was just Prairie Wolf items, we'll still have Prairie Wolf. Prairie Wolf will be kind of our entry premium line, I'd say. So it'll be kind of more of your well products, really nice, well-made well products. Mm-hmm. So then we'll have a whole line of clear spirits. It's called Garden Club. Garden Club's they're phenomenal clear spirits. It was Jeff's first real attacking the still. Yeah. We've made, some of the proudest. I'm biased, obviously, but I'm a gin guy, and we're making one of the best gins I've ever had in my life. It's fantastic. Why Garden Club too? So Guthrie's known as the Garden Club City.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if you notice, everyone misses it when you come into town on the signs. It says "Welcome to Guthrie, a Garden Club City," and there are several garden clubs. Our plan down the road is to have the garden clubs of Guthrie kind of grow some of the botanical components. Yeah. So we always try to tie everything back. I'll show you the labels. The labels are really ornate and wild, and they have a lot of nods to Guthrie, but also nods to what Jeff mentioned, the Prohibition being so wild in our state. We like to kind of lean into the fact that we're reinventing spirits in a place that tried everything they could to keep us from doing it. So that's kind of a theme that rolls through. Yeah. And then we'll also have the first, we think, really proper bourbon out of Oklahoma, and including the ability that it has products in it that were grown in Oklahoma. So very Oklahoma focused. Our plan down the road is to be all from Oklahoma, but we're getting there. And it's called Same Old Moses. Okay. And it has a really wild story too that we can get into if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Same Old Moses is, I'll try to wrap it up quick, but so
we got time. If you want to tell the whole story, you rip. You tell the whole story.
This is good. So right when the land run happened, a fellow named Moses Weinberger came down from Kansas City. He was a grocer. He expected to come down, open up kind of a line of supplies for folks who just got land, and be their kind of grocery route. Was, as he was talking to people, he was like, "Hey, I got bananas," and they're like, "Oh yeah, bananas, cool. Can you get whiskey?" And he's like, "Okay." And then next person, yeah, whiskey. I like what that guy's thinking. So he's like, "Well, I can get whiskey." Okay. Goes back to Kansas City, and he's talking to his friends, and he's like, "Man, I think I'm not going to do a grocery store in there. I think I'm just going to build a bar."
Right.
And the guy's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, everyone just wants whiskey." And he's like, "Man, Same Old Moses. You always figure out something crazy, right?" So boom, there's the bar. Yeah. So comes down. Well, Same Old Moses, the proper bar was about 200 yards from where our distillery sits.
Okay.
And if you ever come to Guthrie, there's a placard on the street that shows it. It's really cool. So anyways, he ends up making the first bar in Oklahoma Territory. So even before it was a state.
Yeah.
So fast forward, Guthrie becomes the capital, and Prohibition hits. As you'll see, that's a hot button for today. So
not bitter about it at all.
Yeah, not a bit. He gave us good stories.
Yeah.
The Hatchetations. If you've ever seen that poster, it's a bunch of kind of like long-skirted women that says "Lips that touch liquor won't touch ours."
Okay.
Those were the Hatchetations. So what they were this overly religious group that kind of led the push for Prohibition. And the person in charge was a gal named Carrie Nation. Yeah. And Carrie Nation would take them, and they'd run into bars, and they would tell everyone they're going to hell. And then they all carried hatchets, and they would just hatchet up the bar to screw the bar up and hopefully make it where patrons don't want to go back, but they still went back.
Right.
So to save his bar, she got ousted from a few states, lastly Arkansas, but she ended up in Guthrie.
Okay.
So he actually reached out to her and said, "Listen, come into my bar, give your spiel. Just don't mess my bar up." She said, "Okay," comes in, gives her spiel, no one cares. So she gets mad on the way out, and she slams her hatchet in the side, and she nicked the side of the bar off. So moving forward, that was what he would use to open beer bottles, always her spot.
Yeah.
So right after she left, he got outside in front of the building on over the door. It says, "All nations welcome except Carrie." So you'll see as you see Same Old Moses out there, the slogan on the bottle will say "All nations welcome."
That's awesome.
So that's the nod back to that.
That's what's so good about you get these old stories, right?
Yeah.
Because life's so different back then.
Crazy.
And even the bars, right? Bars were like handmade works of art.
For sure.
Wouldn't they? And people today were like, "Oh, you just repair it." Well, that stuff's like probably made out of solid wood.
Yeah.
It's like a big deal.
For sure.
And she would go, and they would go and hack it out.
Crazy. And so even to push that one further, I mentioned we're opening a bar. It'll be open hopefully right June 1st-ish.
Yeah.
we were doing extensive research on all of this stuff because we're both nerds like that. So I dug around and found out on that placard that showed where St. Moses used to be, it's Moses and it's his two first bartenders, and their names are Mac and Ike, and that's the name of our bar, Mac and Ike's.
There you go.
So they get their own place now.
That's so cool. So awesome. I mean, it's just like when you go back, right, and you go through the whole process of growing up and what am I going to do, or who am I going to be, or whatever. And you fireman, astronaut, and you think, and you wind the path, right, and you get to distilling. And then like you said, you guys are nerds. Well, no, you're just passionate about what you do, which may seem nerdy, but you just love getting into it, right? I mean, who doesn't? You come up with these stories, and you're like, I found my thing, right? And this is what I want to do. And, you just sounds like you guys are doing a huge, one of the goals is to transform and bring the whole town together with, the garden stuff and, women planting or men planting the stuff you can use in the drink and the names, like it all ties back, which is, I mean, that stuff's, it's not just like I'm going to open a bar and sell vodka and that's it, so that's pretty special. And it gives you, I'm sure so many more stories as well that are going to tie into future drinks.
It's pretty crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. So tell me, I don't know anything about the process of distilling gin or vodka, or, I mean, you guys went hard at hand sanitizer, thankfully, last year. I mean, what's that all like?
Well, distilling is not all that complicated. It starts out with a really rudimentary beer. We call it distiller's beer. It's maybe 3 to 10% alcohol, sometimes as much as 20, but not the stuff that we use. That's more like rocket stuff. Yeah. So that beer is then, it's put into a pot, right, or a kettle. And if you can imagine like a tea kettle when the steam is rushing out of it, and it's whistling. Yeah. That's basically distilling, right? But because alcohol, it evaporates, it boils at 78 degrees Celsius, and water is 100 degrees Celsius, the alcohol will actually, cook off first. And it's actually what's collected. So that steam that you can imagine coming out of the kettle then hits a condenser, which is essentially like if you took a glass of ice water and stuck it up next to the steam, it would recondense on that glass, Yeah. That's basic distillation. For like gin, you take your raw materials include botanicals that are, it has to be juniper, but you run the gamut. You can include anything from like peppers and citrus and things like that to create a certain style of gin. So you macerate that in like a distillate for a couple days. This just means to let it sit and soak. And then after that, redistill it. Okay. Yeah, and so you capture they're called esters. They're like fruit esters. It's just compounds that give things flavor. That comes through in the alcohol distillation, and that is essentially what gin is. Yeah.
My wife loves gin.
Oh, well,
big
good.
fan. Big fan. And
I've had some for her.
And my nan. We went home for Christmas one year, and my nan, my aunt was coming down from Scotland, and she brings there's a thing in Scotland called Gin of the Month Club, and you basically sign, pay a subscription and they send you gins from all around the world, and which is great. So she brought some down, and it was like 2 p.m. at my nan's house, and my nan's like, "Do you want to try some gin?" My wife's like, "Sure, yeah, why not?" And she's thinking it'll be mixed. No, they're out there with their shot glasses just taste testing, and I have this fantastic picture of my nan and my wife drinking shots of gin,
shots of warm gin.
Taste testing it at 2 p.m. I'm like, this is
fantastic.
That's our running joke every time we walk into a bar, like 2 shots of warm gin. No, gin, we're lucky too. The original family that owned the place, they brought in a really killer still. We have this German Carl still it's actually really a gin making still. It's got some really neat attachments to it that it's made to make that kind of product. And prior to us really knocking the dust off of it by doing what it's supposed to do, we didn't make a lot of. We've always made a gin called Loyal Gin. It's a really great introductory gin. It's perfect for people just trying to get into gin. Sure. What we're about to come out with Garden Club, it's a proper gin. It's a big. It's got 11 botanicals, and it took Jeff between 70 and 100 runs to dial in exactly what he wanted. And it's really a painstaking process, but what we came up with is just unreal. What's been fun is we've kind of had some of our better customers and friends and stuff kind of come up and taste their way through it and look at our operation. And our favorite thing we hear is there's so many people who are just like, I'm not a gin person. And the second they drink it, they're like, I think I'm a gin person.
I'm a gin person.
Yeah. It's this gin. So we've got that. We've got another. For people who just are dead set on not being gin fans, we've also created this really cool. We're calling it a flavored vodka for lack of different terms without having to explain it all, but it's really made like a gin instead, just without the juniper and the more gin-based botanicals. But it's just big and it's citrusy and also got this really cool pepper, and it's a ton of fun too. And that's called Spice Citrus. So we'll have it out as well.
Yeah.
And then we have just a mind-blowingly clean vodka as well. It'll be nice and clean as a compliment or complement to the other flavored items.
So I mean, that process of like nailing that gin for however many tries, you have to be like, I'm sure there are points where you're like, I've got it, and then you try it again, like, I haven't got it. What have I done differently, right? You're just going back and like this, you're incrementally getting better and better, but that process,
I'll tell you what, there were more than a few times where I was standing in front of the still just absolutely terrified that I had screwed something up. We have a company that we use to consult. I've not been a distiller for a long time, like I said. I've only been doing this for maybe 6 months now, and so we brought on a consultant company, and we have a couple master distillers now that I can kind of fall back on.
Sure.
So this, if you can imagine me pacing back and forth frantically in front of a still on the cell phone with a guy in Canada trying to fix a problem. Yeah, that was pretty common back then. But we got it figured out. And like I said, I just started doing this. I knew I liked gin. I knew what kind of gin I liked. I distilled something like 71 different botanicals individually, blended them individually to come up with like a base recipe, and then after that we were off to the races. It was a process.
Yeah, we thought we had it. We thought we had it 7 times before we.
Oh,
okay, this is the one. But each of those runs probably had 10 to 12 runs inside of where he'd be like, I'm going to tweak just this one up a little and this one down a little, and I mean botanicals are really expensive, and so we're counting, and I'm just, I'm looking at the ledger going, go run it again.
Yeah, try it again.
Good call, man. Yeah.
Someone
sure
will
this
drink
is
it.
Pretty good. And he's like, I think I can get better. I'm like, get your checkbook.
That's when it's like the professor, against like the accountant, and it's like, no, it's got to be perfect. Well, I kind of running out of money. Figure this out. Like, we need to open up. Like,
that's every Monday for us.
We had that this morning. We're lucky, and like you mentioned, we're working with probably the premier consulting group in at least North America for distilling. They're great partners, but his master distiller that he gets to call he's a great guy. He ran Canadian Club whiskey for 30 years, and before that, he was the quality control director for Beefeater. So he's a salty guy.
That's what he's doing.
It's nice too to see a guy like you said. Jeff mentioned he's only really ran the still for 6-ish or more than that now months, but I mean. The same thing. He got his first taste of our gin, and he said, "I don't think I've had a gin this cool ever."
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of rad to hear from a guy who worked at a premier gin maker for 2 decades.
Yeah.
So we're pretty excited. Yeah, you can tell we're pretty fired up.
Getting close to June 1st, while we're like a week and a half, 2 weeks out, and
9 days.
Trying to get everything.
Counting, right?
Yeah, and it's Memorial Day weekend, right, and everything coming up. Like it's. Launching everything.
We get our labels in tomorrow. We don't have them in yet, so like our whole team is just chomping at the bit to get going. And we didn't mention this, but we're a small little family team. Our entire squad, top to bottom, is 10 people. Our production team's really 4 and Jeff. So it's all hands all the time, and we love it. It's a ton of fun. There's days we want to kill each other, but there's something to drink at the end of the day to cool down. So
exactly,
it works out.
I've never had a job where I could go home and just kind of like calmly check out and not freak out, and worry about the next day or whatever. This is the first job.
Oh, you do, huh?
Dude.
What's that like?
Well, Derek's a crazy person. It's really cool. It's meditative almost to distill. Yeah.
It's an art, man. It's so fun to watch. It's so fun to watch what happens. See, we haven't even started talking about bourbon yet. That's a whole other world.
Yeah, because there's. For sure, like let's dive into it because I'm not like being from the UK, right? I've never really been big into whiskey that much, even though the UK is pretty good for whiskey.
Oh yeah,
or gin too. I just never took to it. I mean, generally growing up, you're like, I'm gonna drink beer and that's it. And I'd have a warm beer every now and then with my granddad, but nothing, the golf club, but never, go to is just like a lager or something like that. But I mean, the whiskey stuff, you get to aging and barrels. I mean, it's its own thing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know the difference between bourbon and whiskey, but there is a difference, right?
There is.
Yeah. So not all bourbon, or I'm sorry, not all whiskey is bourbon, but all bourbon is whiskey. Yeah, for sure. The U.S. because of prohibition and some pretty gnarly practices back in the day, the U.S. has some really strict regulations for how whiskey can be made, specifically how bourbon can be made. Yeah. So bourbon has to be, let's see, a minimum of 51% corn, and then generally it's blended with two different other grains, usually rye or wheat, and then barley. So we actually use a 4-grain bourbon that has all 4 of the grains. It's incredibly rich. That's
paid with a good cigar.
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, it's a big. I mean, man, it's a big boy. It's pretty phenomenal. We've got a pretty wild bourbon process going. That's been probably the most fun because bourbon's the hottest thing really in spirits and has been for now a couple decades. I say that even though gin's having a mega renaissance. Like what's wild, COVID's really bumped. Yeah. All these people are making cocktails at home, and you go, if you don't like dark spirits, you go look for cocktails. Like it's pretty rare to find like a vodka cocktail because people making drinks want flavor. So you get gin. So now you've got people now who finally tried gin for the first time and are like, wow. So, we're kind of getting in the world of both of these products at the right time where bourbon's always been bourbon. Gin, though, now is and it's catching up here, which we're excited for. But on the bourbon side of stuff, I mean, there's some real, I mean, it's a different language that bourbon fans have and an appreciation, and they understand the business. That's why for us, kicking off this line, we're doing, our process currently is what's been utilized by a lot of huge brands that people know, like Angel's Envy. Barrel is a company they're very popular right now. They win awards left and right. High West out of Salt Lake City. Who am I missing? Whistle Pig. Mm-hmm. So big names. They all do. They're kind of coup de grace about what they're doing with bourbon is barrel finishings. So what Jeff was saying, you've got to be 51% corn, all those ingredients. The other thing that's important is they have to be aged first in a new American oak barrel. It has to be new American oak, and they have to be in there for at least 3 years unjostled by itself, right? So that's bourbon. So what we do is we've teamed up with a partner distiller in Texas, outside of Austin. He is a phenomenal distiller, worked for many gigantic names that you guys would all know. Yeah. But he kind of got sick of the business of spirits and just wanted to be a distillery. Yeah. So he makes a lot of the brands I just mentioned that do a lot of barrel finishing. He makes a lot of the product for them as well. Gotcha. So we source it currently with him. So we let him start the process.
So it's like a white label then? Kind of?
Not.
No?
Kind of, but if we didn't do anything to it, then it would be.
But so he just like makes the blanket and then ships to you guys and then says, hey, it's been done.
He gives us a mind-blowing foundation, and then we get crazy with it, right? So we dress the bed. And
would you like the best of both worlds?
It's crazy, right? It's a ton of fun. Yeah. I mean, our plan is ultimately to go grain to glass on everything. Right now, the problem is we've got to have stills produced to do that, and to produce a still start to finish, just the still once you're in line is about 18 months. So we're a ways out. This lets us get started and get our feet underneath us with bourbon. Yeah. Plus, it is a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, the stuff we get out of these weird secondary finishing barrels is awesome. But so we source it in at 4 years. What's interesting being from Texas, most bourbon coming from the Kentucky area of the world, their temperature, what really allows a barrel to flavor White Dog or your kind of starting point with whiskey. It's the diurnal variation of temperature. Okay. So as they get hot and cold, the wood kind of acts almost like, if you've ever been in a house with a wood floor or you hear your house creak when the weather changes, right? Yeah. That's the wood expanding and contracting. When that wood expands, it absorbs all of the liquid, takes it all in, right? So it just sits there and gathers up that flavor of the wood. And as it chills out again, that wood compresses back and squeezes it back in. So it's almost like a heart pumping. Right. So the temperature swings in Texas are insane versus Louisville. So what ends up happening is what takes 10 to 12 years to get where they want the flavor to be in Louisville, you can do in Texas in 4.
Oh, awesome.
And, there's a weird byproduct of that in that you lose a lot of angel share, so you lose a lot of product because it evaporates because of the heat.
Sure. But you can make more fast.
Yeah, and it pounds down and gets right where you want it in the sweet spot a lot quicker. So that's where we get to start. The other cool thing is Texas is having a bourbon revolution of their own. There's Balcone it's a distillery in Waco. They won single malt of the year last year, beating out like all of Scotland. Like it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden people are like, oh, I guess we should care about
American
Texas stuff, right? Yeah. So we're also lucky, and the fellow we're talking about that we team with, he's from Tulsa and very proud of Oklahoma also. And he was also one of the first guys that's using Oklahoma rye and wheat in his blend. Which he feels is the best quality stuff he's ever had the chance to make in a whiskey. The only problem is right now, Oklahoma, those grains are not used for the type of production we have to use them for. So we're working hand in hand. We're a big member of MIO and work with the agricultural department to try to see if we can team up with the Wheat Council to figure out ways to start developing the grain the way we need it to make product. And they've been amazing to help us figuring that out. So that's one issue. The other issue is that the price gets kind of wild because they're not used to selling it the way we sell it. And our two worlds and costs are crazy, but we're figuring it out. Yeah. This has given us a chance to kind of get the barrel side figured out. This first run you'll taste next month, Same Old Moses Double Barrel is what's called. I'll let Jeff explain it. It'll be the first interpretation that we'll have year round as our plan, as long as we don't have to run out and get into allocation. Yeah. And then I'll tell you about some more wild stuff for the holiday this year. Yeah. But
okay, so the double barrel process, it's fairly unique in that you're spending a ton of money on wood. So like he mentioned, all bourbon has to be aged in new oak. We actually get the bourbon, like he said, at 4 years, and we introduce it to another brand new oak barrel. So it's like twice aged essentially, or in the wine world they call it like 200% new oak. But it gives it's pretty interesting because like the first barrel is a number 4 char, which just means it's been burned longer basically. Sure. Yeah. And we use a medium toast number 2 char for the second aging, so it kind of mellows it out. It's kind of trippy, but we're able to get a lot of flavor really, really fast. And that's the first release.
Yeah, we call it's weird too. You get a lot of barbecue notes on it, which obviously for being in Oklahoma, that doesn't turn too many folks off.
Right. No one's going to say no to that, hopefully, right?
And as Jeff mentioned, it's a 4-grain, it's a wheated bourbon, so wheated bourbons are super popular right now. They tend to be sweeter, just because that wheat adds that extra sweet element. So the sweet plus the extra smoke, it makes this really nice blend. There's really nothing like it. Almost everyone that's had it's just like pretty. I don't think and I don't blame them. Right. I don't think they expect much, because they're like, oh, an Oklahoma distillery making bourbon. I've heard of that before. Yeah. And they have it, and they all kind of look at us like, oh man, what are you guys doing?
Okay.
This is going to be okay. This is going to be okay. So that's cool. So that's our first finish, and that is the one that will be Same Old Moses. That'll be out pretty much all the time. Yeah. And then our secondary finishes.
Yeah. So I got really, really into finding European wine barrels through this company. I'm not going to name the name of the company, but they can source just all kinds of different wild styles.
Just so like empty wine barrels.
Yeah. So we get mostly 2 different kinds of port, so Tawny and Ruby port. Yeah. We also are kind of my favorite right now is it's a Pedro Jimenez sherry, so it's like a sweet style sherry. And what else? Oh, we have a bunch of secret test barrels right now.
Yeah, for some rye. So we're going to have a rye line also.
Yeah, it's a lot of different things to taste right now. So it's 9 different barrel finishings that we're doing right now. It's sort of experimental with 5, but it's pretty exciting stuff. I mean,
it sounds like you guys have always got something turning and always keeping you, something keeps you coming to work every day and something's new. And although it might be sometimes giant nightmare, for the most part, when you get that finished product, it's totally worth it.
It's amazing. The other cool part is, we taste a lot. That's how we get this shape. But probably every 2 weeks, we really kind of go in with a notepad and figure out. And what's wild is how much this product can change in 2 weeks in a barrel. Yeah. It just, it's always different. you find a different note, or it's, if you needed something to chill out, it has, or it hasn't yet, and it eventually will. And that's where we just kind of live and die. So these additional finishes he's talking about, we're hoping to try to have them out, especially the ports and the PX sherry, for holiday this year.
Sure.
It just really depends on if the whiskey's working with us. Right now it's in a pretty damn good spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes. If we feel like, given a little more time, we haven't really even had a full super hot summer yet.
Right.
We also, like I mentioned, we just purchased a building we're using as a rick house, and it really is the perfect situation. There's no heat or air or anything. It's just going to get real hot and real cold.
Yeah.
So we haven't really had a super hot summer yet to let those barrels go through. So we're hoping that what we see is they really elevate once we get that big diurnal kind of swing for the first time. So we're hoping to have those out then. Fingers crossed. Don't
bring on the 100-degree weather.
Listeners of the podcast, please don't kill us if they're not here. But we promise we'll get them out as quick as we can.
Yeah.
And then the rye line too. We're in full on experimental mode with it too, and I can't even begin to think when we're going to launch it.
Yeah, we didn't even mention we're also doing rye whiskey.
Yeah.
So the rye is wild.
Yeah.
I've never had a rye like it, and to taste an agricultural product that came from Oklahoma in that way is kind of neat.
So that's what's cool when you partner with Made in Oklahoma, or you're a part of Mayo. Like it's really cool that you are, when people think of alcohol and distilling, right, they very rarely think of agriculture and mixing the two, even though they are both their product. You wouldn't have it if you didn't have agriculture. But it's so cool to put you guys in the same room and to talk about it, because for the most part, those agriculture farmers, ranchers, whatever they're doing, they're just thinking farming and ranching, right? They're not thinking, hang on a second, if I change a few things in the way I do my process, the wheat or the rye, whatever it is going to be better to what's going to be in the glass. And then they taste that. And you're like, this is, how can we better, work together? That must be really cool, especially being in Oklahoma. It's coming out of the ground.
Yeah, we've had
awesome.
several conference calls with OSU's agricultural department even. Just because there's these farmers out there that for the most part have no idea that they're marketable. They are totally marketable to distilleries, just like you said. And trying to hunt down corn farmers and ask them what kind of corn they're growing, and we tried to hunt down a mill because you have to have it all milled, right? It was a very, very interesting process. We've got it down now, though. And we've actually found out some neat things about Oklahoma. Like we have the most acreage under rye.
Okay.
But it's only used as like a cover crop or as feed. Yeah. Right. So it's not for human consumption.
You guys are like, this is being wasted.
For sure.
So yeah. So right now we're in the process of getting more farmers turned onto it, and And then, of course, wheat as well. We have the most advanced wheat. I don't know what you'd call these guys. They're just wheat scientists in the world, right? Yeah. It's here and one other country in Europe. So they're constantly coming up with these new varieties and stuff. And so we've already had 4 varieties dropped off at our door, hey, see if these will work. And
it's been cool. Awesome. Like I said, it's all, we buzz MIO and we say, hey, listen, we're trying to do something like this. And in 15 minutes, I got an email and it's like, hey, Secretary Arthur called. She's head of ag. She called the wheat council, and the wheat council wants to pop on a Zoom call, and so we did. And then 2 days later, this guy shows up with a bag of 4 different kinds of wheat, and he's like, "Here's this." And then we give him a tour, and he's like, "Well, man, this is crazy! I can't believe you guys are doing this." And that is the most exciting part, and that's why for us, you've heard me say it over and over, but we want to put Oklahoma on the map for distilling. As you mentioned, me coming from the world of craft beer's had a fantastic stretch of time, especially in this state. It went from being, a handful of breweries to now we're close to 70 throughout the state, which is wild.
They're opening up all the time.
The example we always give for folks too is, walk in a liquor store and if you remember 10 years ago, you'd see one section of local craft beer and it was 2 rows on one. And now it's okay, then it was half an aisle. Then it was a whole aisle, and you're like, wow, these guys are really leaning in. And now you go in there, it's the 6 aisles of local craft beer.
People are fighting for it.
Exactly. So our argument is just why won't you do that for spirits too?
Sure.
we're doing just as much work and doing crazy stuff to make some really killer Oklahoma-focused, different and unique products, and support another local company.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's been awesome, man. Like I said, we're so stoked to get this new stuff out and let people try it and hopefully reset their brain about what can come out of this place.
Yeah,
because they're going to be shocked.
So June 1st is the big announcement, big reveal, big open.
Out.
Yeah. So can people come out? Like, what's the plan for June 1st? Are we opening up? When's the bar and everything too?
Yeah. So tentatively, yes. It's funny I say this. It's hard to open because right now the one thing we're missing at the bar is the front door that we ordered. They can't seem to get it to us, so there's no front door.
Yeah.
And we can't get our license approved until the front door gets there. So it sounds like a joke, but it's not a joke. We'll open when there's a door to open.
So people can go to the website or social media to keep updated.
Yep. So if you want to check now, if you go to wonderfolkspirits.com, you'll see there's a holding page. But come June 1st, you'll see it's a really interesting holding page. That there's a lock on there. A key's going to unlock that, and you're going to see a new world.
Awesome. So
it'll be really cool. And you can always buzz us. We're going to start tours, distillery tours. We're going to get, obviously with the pandemic and everything still rolling around, we're getting to a good place. But our plan is to start distillery tours this summer.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of cool stuff to show. And then, Mac and Ike's, we hope to have open June 1st too. It'll be awesome. It's right on the corner of East Oklahoma and Wentz Street. It's 111 East Oklahoma is the address, I believe. 118, I'm sorry. And it's going to be awesome. We're super stoked.
Yeah, exciting times. Guys, I can't thank you enough for coming down. Apologies for having to reschedule the first time.
No
Glad
worries.
we could make it happen today. Excited to try some drinks. I can't wait. I'm going to have to come up with my wife. She's going to have to try that.
Do it.
Yeah, please do.
Bring her.
Definitely. So for everyone listening, I'll put the links down to the website the guys just mentioned down below and all the social media stuff. And come to Guthrie, come hang out. It's a beautiful town. I'm sure you've already been there, but if you need an excuse, these guys have many excuses for you to come and hang out in Guthrie. But guys, thanks for coming down, and for everyone listening, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers. This podcast is made possible by the Made in Oklahoma program, created for Oklahoma's entrepreneurs. Their free-to-join program focuses on economic growth and development for the small businesses who grow, process, or manufacture a good within Oklahoma. Retail stores who sell Made in Oklahoma products can also benefit from their program. Above all, they encourage you to support and shop local wherever possible. Find them on Facebook and visit their website at www.madeinoklahoma.net to learn more.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.